Environmental justice populations have been burdened over and over again by pollution, disinvestment, and designed neglect, not benign neglect, designed neglect. And as discussed by Professor Polito, it is critically important to address not just individual sources of pollution, but the cumulative impacts of each alongside socioeconomic conditions. In drafting the Environmental Justice Mapping and Data Collection Act, Senator Duckworth and I work closely with environmental justice advocates to create a framework for a federal method to map these cumulative impacts and ensure that communities that are most at risk from environmental injustices are prioritized as we address the climate crisis. Professor Polito and Ms. Flowers, would you agree that it is important to consult with communities in the process of creating these maps, as well as in addressing any gaps in data that would make it harder to understand and tackle environmental justice issues?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I think, yes, we have to consult those communities. Just to give you a quick example, in a lot of the rural communities, where if you don't go down those dirt roads and know that people are there, they will not be counted. And I think it's very important that the people that are impacted are also part of the data collection, because that's why we have so many gaps.
Beautiful. Thank you. Ms. Flowers?
I would agree with that. I think it's really essential. One of the things that we've seen, I haven't seen the federal model or what you're hoping to, what it will look like, but I know in cases like at the Cal EJ screen, which has been one prototype that has been developed, when they go and involve local community members, they can point out sensitive land uses that would also impact how we understand cumulative impacts. So for example, is there a child care center there? Or is there like an elder care facility there, or schools? Those all have big differences. So it is very essential for this to happen.
Thank you. And to both of you, again, would dedicated funding for community engagement, cumulative impact mapping, and data collection make it easier to prioritize and properly value communities' contributions to these efforts?
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
Excellent. Professor Polito highlighted in her testimony extreme heat is an environmental justice issue, even within the same city, due in part to historic redlining and differences in tree cover. Some neighborhoods, often lower income communities or communities of color, can be up to 20 degrees Fahrenheit warmer. Despite the fact that most heat-related deaths and illnesses are preventable, extreme heat events kill more Americans than any other weather event. As the old saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that's why I will soon be reintroducing my Preventing Heat Illness and Deaths Act to strengthen interagency efforts to address extreme heat and provide financial assistance for projects that reduce the health impact of extreme heat events, such as urban tree plantings, cool roofs and streets, and cooling centers. Climate change is only going to worsen the extreme heat crisis. We need prevention now. Professor Polito and Ms. Flowers, would you agree that additional investment in extreme heat prevention could help address historic inequities and prevent and protect public health?
Absolutely. It is urgently needed. People are dying.
Again, Senator, I concur that this is definitely needed. Yes.
Thank you both for that. And finally, in the grips of a respiratory pandemic, healthy air shouldn't even be determined by zip code, but even within a single neighborhood, air quality can vary up to 800%. We can't manage what we don't measure, and federal funding levels for air quality support have remained unchanged for nearly 2 decades, which is unbelievable. And that's why I'm working on legislation that provides grant and contract funding for hyper-local air quality monitoring in environmental justice communities. Professor Polito and Ms. Flowers, would you agree that it is important for us to be able to identify, communicate about, and finally work to resolve air pollution hotspots all across our country?
Yes, I would agree. Absolutely.
Yes, I also agree, and I think that the people in Cancer Alley would welcome that.
Yeah, and again, Cancer Alley is just one example that has proliferated across our entire country. It's just time for us to have environmental justice at the core of any piece of legislation which we pass this year, because if you don't map it, it's impossible then to rectify the historic injustices. So thank you both for your work historically, and thanks to both of our panelists as well. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for conducting this hearing.
Thank you, Senator